traditionally for these conversations. I will hand it over with immediacy to Chair Peacock. Once he arrives, just flag it for me so I know, Alex or any other member of the OST team. So welcome to all attendees. As we work towards bold, ambitious, and visionary planning for children and youth across the District of Columbia. The Commission on Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes is called to order today at 6:04 p.m. Please be sure to record, Alex, or whoever's taking the controls for that. When it is time for public commentary, individuals who, for the purpose of this meeting only and specifically, at this time, we will only have public commentary in the interest of the strategic plan, limited to those who have registered in advance. Please note that we will be adhering to the time limit of 3 minutes for public commentary for those who are pre-registrants. The OST office can will unmute individuals if needed, and will notify them when it is time for them to speak. Just as a common courtesy, if a commissioner is unmuted or for conversation, please put yourselves on mute when not talking. Thank you, Alex. Chair Pika, I'm going to hand it over to you. I was just saying that
Thank you.
If a commissioner is unmuted for conversation, please put yourselves on mute when not talking to reduce background noise. When making or seconding a motion, identify yourself. All votes will be taken in roll call slide. We can go to slide 3. Alex, I was just saying, Commissioner Chair Peacock, that for the sake of this meeting only those who have registered in advance will be able to speak because of our desire and need to get as much into the plan and hopefully at some point be able to vote on it as possible. So I will hand it over to you now for the public commentary portion. And also just limit it to 3 minutes. And if you do go over, we will have to stop you in the interest of time and content of today's meeting. The floor is yours, Chair Peacock.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe, and commissioners, thank you all for your patience. Dr. Lowe and Shanna, quick question for you. So I do have the slide deck. However, part of what was taking me so long to access the notes portion of it, it's saying I need the OST Office OneDrive access. So I was wondering if you could resend that as an attachment instead of a shared OneDrive file so I can get a hold of those notes for the conversation.
Doing it now.
Thank you very much. Perfect. Okay, sounds good. Well, commissioners, thank you again for your patience. Welcome to the September 28th meeting for the Commission on Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes. We're very happy to have you all. So first, we do have one registered public speaker to comment.
Here, Peacock, we have two. It was brought
we
to my
have two
attention.
now.
We do have two. But
Okay,
again,
my apologies.
we're keeping it to
Great.
3 minutes. And if you go over, we will have to cut it in the interest of time to get to the plan, which is the primary purpose of today's meeting.
Thank you. Yes, commissioners. As Dr. Lowe had mentioned, I know we all have a lot of engaging feedback for the public speakers, and we love and welcome the feedback. But today, the primary goal of this meeting is to get through the strategic plan. So please try to limit it as much as we can. And speakers, thank you again for joining us. We're really excited to hear your public comment. However, please try to adhere to the 3-minute timeline as much as possible so we can get through our agenda for today. So thank you. And with that being said, again, I don't have the notes just
yet.
So
our first registered speaker is Riley from DC Action. Riley, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Should I proceed?
The floor is yours. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Riley Denelko. I'm the senior policy analyst focusing on out-of-school time at DC Action, also home of the DC Out-of-School Time Coalition. And many of our coalition members are funded by Learn24. I'm here this evening to share with the Commission some feedback on the latest draft of the strategic plan and ask for your support in making the plan stronger. The feedback that I'm sharing tonight is based on an analysis of the current OST landscape from a racial and economic equity perspective and input from members of the community. First, I just want to say that the updated plan does reflect some promising improvements from the last version. So, we're really pleased to see some of what's in there in the current iteration. So the following are just some additional recommendations to make it even stronger. So the first thing is that according to the bylaws of the OST Commission, the OST needs assessment is meant to guide the drafting of the strategic plan. And while some areas of the draft plan do reflect the needs assessment, it's missing a direct naming of the goal that we're working toward as a district, which is universal OST opportunities. And so we're asking to include something that references the gaps that we need to address, the specific numbers, 52,500 additional seats for after school and 57,400 additional seats for summer, so that we really directly name it and know what we're working toward long term. Second, we urge the Commission to set more ambitious funding and expansion goals to achieve universal OST. Again, the most recent iteration of the plan really did improve upon the previous one. And I have some more specific recommendations about improving those goals for the funding and the expansion in my written testimony that I will send to all the commissioners after my time today. I do want to get through all my points, but I'll send that out so folks can review it. So the third thing I want to mention is that we recommend that the strategic plan make note of the $6 million or so in ESSER federal pandemic recovery funding that's currently included in the fiscal year 24 budget, which is set to expire at the end of the fiscal year. So the plan should include guidance to fill this gap with local dollars starting in FY25 so that the approximately 2,400 youth who are being served with that funding don't lose access to their OST program. And the last thing to mention is that ask that the plan includes further details and explanation for the breakdown of new seats by provider type, which is referenced on page 11. And if it has not already done so, the Commission should meet with schools, DPR, and providers to determine how many seats each sector has the capacity to create and implement the results of those discussions into the plan. So that is all the time I have. Again, I'll send you all my full written remarks so you can review them. But thank you for your time and for considering my recommendations.
Thank you very much for the excellent feedback. We definitely appreciate hearing from you. Okay. Let's see. And
the next individual that is pre-registered, to my knowledge, Chair Peacock, is Jackie Carter.
Okay, thank you. Okay, okay, Jackie Carter, you ready?
I'm actually not ready, and so I would like to not have a comment tonight. I'll just listen. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, Ms. Carter. We definitely appreciate you. Let's see. All right, great. Give me one moment. Okay, great. So for the next item on the agenda is the announcement of quorum. So we're going to take a roll call vote for the attendance. Again, we do need 8 or more members for our quorum to be able to vote. So we're going to go ahead and start via roll call. Commissioner Berkey.
Present.
Thank you and welcome. Commissioner Coates. Let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing him in the chat. Commissioner Crump.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Desir.
Sorry, you just call me out. I
Thank you. Yep.
That.
No, it's okay. Sorry.
Yes.
I saw your
Thank you. Here.
saw your name in the attendees. Commissioner Hanson.
Present.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hill. Okay. Not seen him just yet, but he's pretty consistent, so maybe he'll be with us shortly. But absent for now. Commissioner Jenkins.
Sorry, Commissioner Chairperson. I'm here.
Oh, no problem. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Sounds good. I figured even if you weren't here, you'd be with us shortly. So that's, I don't think I remember you missing any meetings. So sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
I'm present. Commissioner Jenkins.
Thank you. Commissioner Verlin.
Hi. Evening, y'all.
Thank you. Welcome. Great. I'm present. Commissioner Peeler. Okay, I don't see her in the chat just yet. Commissioner Safran.
I'm here.
Thank you. Welcome. Commissioner Siegel.
Present.
Thank you. Welcome. Commissioner Taylor. Okay, not seeing him in the chat either. And Dr. Lowe.
Present.
Thank you. So it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. So we have 10 voting commissioners present. Thank you. We have reached our quorum. Wonderful. Okay, commissioners, we're going to take a vote to approve the agenda. This vote will be taken in roll call style. Commissioners, if you could please take a brief moment to review. And once reviewed, then if one of you could make a motion to approve that agenda, we can begin to move forward.
This is Commissioner Hanson. I motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Any seconds to that motion?
This is Commissioner Siegel seconding the motion.
Okay, thank you. Great. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Great. So a vote to approve the agenda. Commissioner Berkey.
I approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Crump.
Abstain.
Okay, that's fair. Commissioner Desir. Thank you. Commissioner Hill.
Approve.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Jenkins.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Verlin.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Safran.
Approve.
Thank you. And Commissioner Siegel, I know you seconded the motion.
So I approve.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, great. So this motion approves with one that's abstaining. Thank you again, commissioners. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Now, this meeting includes our June, July, and August meeting minutes, since we did have several unofficial meetings where we weren't voting. A draft version of these minutes has been provided. Commissioners, if you could please take a brief moment to review these minutes and let us know if there are any changes or revisions that need to be made to these minutes. And if not, if no changes are necessary, whenever ready, if we can get a motion to approve these minutes so we can move forward.
This is Commissioner Hanson. I motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Also, just want to my name is misspelled in a couple of them, but
Okay.
that's totally fine. Let's not have that hold up the process.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out, though. Let's see. Alex, what do we have to do to get that resolved?
Our apologies, Commissioner Hanson. It will be fixed. Thank you for sharing that.
Sounds good. Thank you. And I know
Commissioner
that.
Berkey here. I also noted there were a few kind of notes to the person preparing the minutes that were still embedded in the minutes themselves. And maybe if you're just making a few, typographical fixes, you could take those notes out. But otherwise, the minutes were correct from my recollection.
Okay, great. That's a good point. Okay, so
I would second Commissioner Hanson's motion to approve the minutes then.
Okay, sounds good. With the note that those extra notes in the minutes need to be stricken from the record. Sounds good. Thank you. Okay. With that being said, Commissioner Berkey, you're first on the roll call. So since you seconded the motion, I'm going to take that as approved.
Vote to approve, yes.
Thank you. Sounds good. Commissioner Crump,
Approve.
thank you. Okay. Commissioner Desir, Commissioner Desir.
If you can't speak, you can put your
Sorry, you
vote
can't
in the
hear me.
chat.
Thank you. Sorry, let me open up the chat box so I can see.
The chat's turned off. I approve. That's fine.
Thank you. Sounds good. Great. Commissioner Hanson, who made the motion, I'm going to take that as approved. Commissioner Hill,
Approved.
thank you, sir. Commissioner Jenkins,
Approve.
thank you. Commissioner Verlin,
Approved.
thank you. Commissioner Safran,
Approve.
thank you. Commissioner Siegel,
Approve.
thank you. Okay, great. So the minutes have unanimously been approved. We can go ahead and move on. Great. Commissioners, we have also opted to, sorry, I meant to disclose this at the beginning. Due to the large nature of the discussion on the strategic plan, we've opted to switch that to proceed the OST office updates in the discussion for today. Is there any opposition to that, or are you all ready to dive into the strategic plan? Okay.
Commissioner, I would have approved the agenda instead of abstaining if I knew that.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry about that. Yeah, thought we had mentioned that prior. Thank you for letting me know that, by the way. So I'll go back and change that vote. Yeah, we just figured we have a lot to get through with this strategic plan. Hopefully, we do still have time to get through the OST updates, especially because this is the last meeting of the fiscal year. So we do want to hear those and get to them. But you know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We're hoping to be able to approve the strategic plan and get through it. So thank you for your flexibility, commissioners. Let's see. All right. Let's see. So let me get through these slides. Okay, great. So commissioners, if you are looking through the slide deck, the OST strategic plan discussion begins on slide 25. So Alex, can we go ahead and skip to slide 25 for now, and then we'll come back to this? Oh, sorry, I see it now. Okay, great. All right. Now, commissioners, the final draft of the OST strategic plan has been included in your meeting materials. Before we dive into it, are there any initial thoughts or reflections on the final version of the plan that you'd like to bring up initially? And this is an open discussion, so feel free to raise your hand or, you know, unmute yourself and speak. Just make sure for the sake of the minutes, since again, we are in this virtual format, that you do state your name for the sake of the records. Yep, Commissioner Hanson.
Right. So I just want to start off by thanking Dr. Lowe in the office for preparing this and getting this to us last week. And I want to recognize and appreciate, I think, the improvements. Like one of the things that is most important to me about the strategic plan is that we have clear metrics for how we measure our success and whether or not we are moving towards after school for all or universal out of school time. I'm not sure which term is most appropriate or that we'll settle on. And I want to, I think, echo some comments, then ask a question, just maybe a logistics or point of order question. The comment that I think Riley made earlier, that to me anyways, it's really important that in addition to having these really clear and I think ambitious metrics to increase out of school time funding or slots available by 5% a year over the course of the strategic plan, that we also have our North Star that is in line with the needs-based assessment that the DC Policy Center said. And to me, I think maybe one of the biggest things I would add to this to really feel like it's complete is if we're saying, our goal is to reach universal after school for all, which we are defining as, 54,000 or 53,000 seats based on the needs-based assessment that the DC Policy Center completed. So that's, I think, probably my biggest reflection on it right now. The other thing I just want to ask is if we do have language that we would like to see amended or added into the strategic plan without delaying it, what is the best means to do that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. First of all, thank you for bringing up the point about the metrics. I agree with you that that's an excellent inclusion. Definitely helps us moving forward. Dr. Lowe, do you have an answer on that regarding the recommendations for things such as the language, as you had just mentioned? I'm not sure if we're able to do amendments or anything like that afterwards, but
It really depends on what is said. It depends on what is decided upon at the completion of this meeting. So is it approved with edits within a specific time frame or approved with no edits? It's ultimately where the commissioners land. And if so, what specific, what are the recommended edits as we move forward?
yeah, okay. Sounds good. So yeah, Commissioner Henson, if you do have specific edits or anything, feel free to mention them to us during this meeting, and then we can see if they can be, taken into effect now, or just kind of depends on, as Dr. Lowe mentioned, how intricate they are and how deep we need to go. It looks like next we have Commissioner Berkey, followed by Commissioner Crump, followed by Commissioner Siegel. So Commissioner Berkey, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, I'll just be very brief. I just want to thank everybody for working so diligently on this. I mean, this is a tremendously improved strategic plan as compared with the past plan of the OST office. This is much more robust, and a lot more effort across sectors has gone into this, which I really appreciate. And I also was wondering about, what would happen if we had any edits to suggest at this time, but I appreciate the guidance that we could essentially vote for it with specific edits to be made. And I like the idea of using the term universal out of school time access as opposed to after school for all, because the plan addresses not just after school programming, but summer programming and other things. And I think aiming for the universal OST program access would be a better kind of overarching term. But aside from that, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the feedback. Definitely valued. Sounds good. Commissioner Crump.
Sorry, my questions echoed that. I pretty much wanted to know, as we're going through the strategic plan, if there are things that we feel are either missing or needs to be added to it. If we agree as a commission, as commissioners, what is the process is it an opportunity for us to go through it? Like, for instance, if I say, okay, well, this strategy from funding and capacity building, we felt like it should have been included, and we discuss it as a commission. I know how we previously used to do it when we would go over the strategic plan together. We would talk it out, and if commissioners was like, okay, we think that's a good idea and it should be included, is that an opportunity? Is Learn 24 in a position to say, us to talk it out with Learn 24 to say, hey, once this is included, then we can approve it? But I just want to make sure if we're going that route of approving with additions, how do we make sure that those additions are in there, and what is that process? Could we do that today, like in real time? I know when we used to do it, it used to be right on their screen, and we would just start typing it. Somebody from Learn 24 would start typing it if we all agreed on it. So I guess that's my major question, because I feel like there are some things that were really important to the Funding and Capacity Building Committee that have been left out. So it kind of falls short of our expectations in that way. We think that some of our recommendations have been either taken out of context or just watered down in a sense. So we just want to make sure that we still have an opportunity to correct some of the things that we're not happy with.
Okay, that's an excellent point. Thank you for bringing that up. I would say for those specific ones that you would like the commission to hear and, you know, be able to run by everyone, are you able to note those down so that we can have a discussion on some of those and, you know, see how the commission's feeling about them?
Yes.
Okay, sounds
What I
good.
will also say, Chair Peacock, is this. Thank you for sharing your feedback, Commissioner Berkey, Commissioner Hanson, Commissioner Crump, and Chair Peacock for facilitating. If we would like to go the route of including feedback, I would recommend Chair Peacock that we have an established deadline to keep moving the needle forward. Perhaps next week. I'm just throwing a date out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. For final suggested edits based on what is discussed during today's meeting. I would not recommend new stuff. I would perhaps recommend building on what is already established in the plan, as it should have been reviewed prior, and I anticipate that it has been reviewed prior. So anything that is recommended to include within the plan should be based on what is discussed collectively as a commission and landed on with an established deadline within the coming week and or weeks.
I agree with that. I think that's a great point, Dr. Lowe. Yeah, I was mainly saying for specific feedback. So I know, for example, Commissioner Crumpet mentioned some ideas that she wanted to run by the commission. If we could run those by and bring them up in today's meeting, just so, you know, while we have everyone here, we can discuss them, either move forward with them or not move forward with them, or understand your justification behind some of the ones that you feel were taken out of context, just while we have everyone together so we can all be on one page and one accord. That sounds good. Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Let's see. Commissioner, let's see. Looks like Commissioner Siegel's up next.
I'm really struggling with the issue of the needs assessment in that it is an incredibly comprehensive and slow process to develop the needs assessment, at the same time that I'm hoping that the office can be as nimble as possible. And so I just want to raise as a concern that a very deliberative and very thorough and very comprehensive and very expert needs assessment is an important tool. I'm wondering if, for example, there is some issue where we need a quick response without every bit of information available, how the commission and how the office can respond quickly. So, for example, if, God forbid, 10,000 migrant children are dropped in the District of Columbia and they're going to need support and programming, how do we respond when those issues and those children are not included in the needs assessment that was prepared, on which we plan a fair amount of our work? So I'm just wondering how we include in the strategic plan the ability to respond quickly to needs that may not have been anticipated when the needs assessment was completed.
A good point.
I know that Dr. Safran, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you brought this up regarding a nimble plan, and I don't want to speak for you, but I know you had mentioned like perhaps within 6 month increments. But would you care to share what you were sharing regarding the plan being responsive to needs
Sure.
across DC?
Absolutely. One of the things that I suggested was that we review it and make any like updates or changes that are needed depending on the circumstances, whether that's every 6 months.
I can't hear you, Dr. Tafran. You're on mute.
Said a lot of good stuff too. Um, what I was saying was that to look at the strategic plan as if it was a living document. And so maybe we would go back to it every 6 months or yearly to see if there's anything we need to add or take away from it. Because it's very difficult to think we're putting something in place right now and nothing is going to be needed over the next 3 years till 26. So going back to your point is that we may be able to make adjustments or changes or change our focus depending on if we do get this additional amount of students. So that's just one way to mitigate the circumstances.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Dr. Lowe, I'll defer to you in the office on that one, but I mean, Commissioner Saffron, I agree with you just because when we initially came up with the strategic plan, everything was in person. It was before the whole pandemic, before everything was virtual. So these past few years have shown us anything, it's that a lot of things can rapidly change and become very big changes. So I agree that it's a good idea to, keep it something that we can continue revisiting. Dr. Lowe, do you have any comment on that?
I'm open to that
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah. Again, it is tough to continue making a lot of revisions since this is a big document, so we want to at least get it approved. But it does make sense to be able to at least look at how the document stands up to the real world with so many changes. Let's see. It looks like next we have Commissioner Hanson.
I just had a practical or logistical question to make sure that everybody can deliver the specific feedback that they want. I'm wondering if it would be possible to share a version of the strategic plan as like a Google Doc or something where folks can comment directly on it or comment together. It's a really great, thorough, complex document, and I just feel like it might be easier for folks to suggest like, here's where I would add the language, and for other people to be able to see folks' comments in a shared document together. If we could do something like that, I feel like we could all probably offer our feedback more quickly and efficiently.
Okay. Thank you for the suggestion. Dr. Lowe, did you of the office have anything to say regarding that comment?
What I would recommend is if we are at that juncture,
Mhm.
we want to kind of look at the plan and kind of like dive in slide 7, slide 12, etc.
Yeah.
I would recommend doing it in real time right now. When I or one of my team members can pull the document up and insert the comments, so we can see what is being added or taken out in real time, but also have the discussion in real time on specifics, and allow for feedback across the board with whatever edit is recommended. So we could go that route if we're at that juncture now where we want to look at specific slides in the plan to make it a more useful, a better use of our time. If we're at that point where everyone feels as though that they have shared their overall feedback and now want to dive deeper into specific portions of the plan.
I just have one more question that I just want clarity as we go into the plan.
Yes.
I know that it's so in the meetings that we had, I know it's when we say recommendations, I just want clarity on that because I know previously when we did the strategic plan, it was first 1 or 2 times we did it, it was based off of the legislation, which was like Learn 24 and us working together to create the plan. So for instance, if Mark said, hey, this is missing, we discuss it with the commission, and then Learn 24 might say, hey, we can't do that because of this. We would talk it out and then come up with a solution, but it would go into the plan. So that way, after we have this strategic plan, we usually have a work plan that each committee is working off of to update the tactics, not necessarily the strategies. The strategies stay the same to hold Learn 24 accountable to the strategic plan, but the tactics would change based off of what was going on. So for instance, how Mark Siegel just said the instance of if it's migrant workers, that's as simple as like the recommendation that we gave about having Learn 24 specific priorities. So it might be migrant workers because things change, but overall, the overall the overall goal or strategy would be to focus on and refine priority points based off of the needs assessment and serving youth, XYZ. So I just to keep it short, I guess my question is, because the DC legislation, it equivocally says that like the strategic plan is supposed to be developed by the commission. And I feel like we spent, at least my committee spent like 10 to 12 hours working with your you and your staff in open office hours meetings, but it was referred to us as these are like basically how I feel is it's like these are recommendations. We don't have to put them in a plan or we don't have to bring it to the commission to discuss it. When previously it wasn't that way. It was the strategic plan is developed by the commission in partnership with Learn 24 office. So I just want to clarify, are our recommendations just recommendations or or is the strategic plan, do we have a say in developing a strategic plan? Because how the way the legislation reads, it reads as if we're developing the strategic plan is developed by the commission and that the office is supposed to support us in developing that. So as always, previously, we understand that sometimes we recommend things that Learn 24 then says, hey, this is why it's not possible. And maybe we can do this, but we talk it out as a commission rather than it just not being brought to the table at all. And I feel like some of our recommendations, that's what has happened. So I just want to clarify when we say recommendations, are they just that recommendations? Or is this strategic plan supposed to be developed by the commission in conjunction with the office?
That's a great point, Commissioner Crump. And I think if you do have any specific recommendations that you do feel were not heard by the office, this is definitely the time and place to bring them up so that we can discuss them with the entire commission and see the path to move forward. Is that fair?
Yes, but when we finish this call, can we have an answer on that question?
Can I give some context for this conversation? Thank you for bringing it up, Commissioner Crump. And so for everyone's awareness, this plan has been developed, co-developed in partnership with multiple stakeholders, inclusive of, but not limited to. So yes, there are recommendations that have been made from the respective committees. There's also the needs assessment, of course, that grounds the strategic plan. Feedback has also been gathered from community members, CBOs, our grantee partners, the OST office, even the DME, to make sure that there is alignment, commission and committee members. And so this plan has been co-developed. I have also been extremely transparent in sharing specifically what from each recommendation from the respective committees have been included in the plan. If the commission would like to have a discussion on what has not been, and to note, the majority of what has been recommended by committees has been included in the plan across the board. There are some instances where they have not been included, and there's rationale for each of those. We can most certainly dive into that if needed, but I do want to underscore that this plan has been developed in partnership with the greater DC area and OST stakeholders, inclusive but not limited to the commission and the other stakeholders that I just mentioned. And so to the question of, are they just recommendations or do they have a say in the plan? No, they are not just recommendations because we have included what committees across the board, whether it's quality, coordination and collaboration, funding and capacity building, outcomes and needs assessment. I've highlighted on purpose what has been included. We can discuss if you would like to what has not and why, but the recommendations from the committees have been included in the plan. And so to add the question about does the commission have a say in the plan? Absolutely, but it is not absolute as it has been co-developed to support what is in the best interest of stakeholders, in the OST space across the district. The last thing I will say is that if there are specific examples that you would like to discuss that have not been included, we are more than happy to have that conversation. But again, I want to underscore the importance of this being a collaborative effort where it's not, and it also is a strategic plan, not a catch-all plan for everything, because we want to make sure that you guys and the greater DC area has input into the plan. Tonight would also be a great time to raise specifically what else you would like to see in the plan and to have a discussion around it for those applicable things that are not necessarily captured in the way that was envisioned.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lowe. That sums it up well. Definitely the aspect around, of course, the commission does have our recommendations and our say-so with the strategic plan, but we do have to keep in mind there are multiple stakeholders involved with this and the city as a whole, and this is a document for the entire city and the youth programs. So we want to try to all come to a common ground on something that works for all of us. With that being said, too, I think it's important to note that even if something isn't necessarily included in writing within the strategic plan, it doesn't necessarily mean it isn't a goal that we can continue to work towards as a commission. So, all the points and feedback is definitely excellent and appreciated. But just keep in mind, just because something may not be ironclad in writing, we can definitely still try to work towards these goals within our committees and the commission as a whole. Let's see, who do you have? Sorry, I see one more hand raised, but I can't see who it is.
Was it you, Dr. Safran? I may have missed it.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Hanson.
Commissioner Hanson,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I think that's from when my hand was up earlier, but I think I do maybe want to just respond to the last comment though. Like, I do feel like we're skipping over the previous commissioner's point. I mean, I think she's expressing a frustration that if her committee formulated specific items to include in the strategic plan and they're there, I think to me, what I heard is it's not a recommendation like these are supposed to be the recommendations are included. And to me, it sounds like she's feeling like we're overwriting those proposals. And I want to respect that because I think I would like to at least understand more why those aren't included. And to turn, if I'm getting any of that incorrect, please correct me. But it seems important that if a committee worked on the recommendations, they should find their way into the commission unless there's an active discussion about why we wouldn't move forward with them.
Please share some examples so we can address whatever has not been included that has been suggested be included. So yes, we want to hear the specific examples that have been omitted so we can either provide a rationale or have a discussion on them.
Yeah, sounds good. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. Now, commissioners, this document is about 41 slides. Do we want to go through it one by one, or are there any specific points that you want to dive into initially?
I'm feeling like we just ought to go straight to the strategies and skip the introductory pages.
Okay.
So that we can really get to the meat of any recommendations that need to be updated or added.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see. Okay, so I'm currently looking at strategic priorities. Is that the one you were referring to, Commissioner Berkey?
Yes, although
Okay.
there was a lot of yellow on the previous slide. I don't know what exactly was on that one, but I don't recall. The one immediately before this.
That's the next
I
slide.
might have been. Yeah, that's the next one.
The next
Okay.
one, okay. Yeah, so this is just the overview of the main strategies. I think let's just go into like strategy 1 and look at it and see.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. So I'm currently synced with Alex. Commissioners, if you're unfamiliar with how the Teams format works, you can scroll through both forward and backwards to the slides on your own, or you can click the sync button to sync with where Alex is at. So currently we are on slide 8 of 41, which is the strategic priorities. Now, there are 6 strategies listed. So to achieve its vision and mission, the OST office will prioritize the following 6 strategic priorities, which remain anchored in the values and learnings from the needs assessment, stakeholder input, and the OST commission. Strategy 1 is to implement the vision of after school for all, provide and expand access to quality, in-demand after-school programming through continued grant making, the launch of My After School DC, and through improving families' access and experiences with OST programs. Strategy 2 is expand summer OST programming, expand access to quality in-demand summer OST programming, and improving OST families' access and experiences with summer programs. Strategy 3, improve access for students with special needs. Ensure students with special needs have access to and can participate in out-of-school time programming. Strategy 4, implement continued commitment to quality and capacity building. Across all opportunities and efforts, prioritize the continued commitment to high quality and strong OST programming and experiences and the capacity building of OST program providers. Strategy 5, improve OST systems and processes. Improve provider experience through centralized and refined systems and processes. Strategy 6, strengthen the OST office. Strengthen and build the capacity of the team to deliver on the OST vision in support of the After School for All vision through continuous growth and improvement. So these are the 6 strategic priorities. Commissioners, do you have any feedback, questions, or concerns regarding this before we move on? All right. Okay, sounds good. Alex, we can move forward to slide 9. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know exactly where this fits in here, but I appreciate the attention strategy 3 offers to students with special needs. And I feel like another population that we sometimes overlook are English language learners. And if we want to make sure that OST is accessible to all families, I feel like we want to name expanding those opportunities as well.
In the definition of the students with special needs, it does include English learners.
Yeah,
as well as students with disabilities. It's defined on a separate slide a little bit later on, but it could be called out here. But
yeah, I'll just say I think I prefer if we sort of name it as well. Like I always feel like it's a little funny when we are lumping those 2 groups or different groups together like that.
Okay, that's a valid concern. Thank you for bringing that up. And
Can I share something?
Yep.
Around that? So in consideration of what was said just now by Commissioner Berkey and Commissioner Hanson, and also earlier by Commissioner Safran, special needs could be encompassed of multiple different needs, right? So we have our students with intellectual differences, physical differences, our L learners, newcomers, migrant students are also considered special needs, unhoused students, etc. And so my initial thoughts when hearing what the feedback that was just shared is to keep the plan nimble. To me, it would make sense to leave it open with the parentheses that was shared about what this special needs population could potentially include. Because if we do name it specifically, and then 3 months from now, we have an influx of newcomers or an uptick in students who are unhoused, do we then need to come back to the plan 3 months in, or is it already covered because we've said special needs, parentheses, L's, newcomers, unhoused kids, migrants, etc. So that is my thought on it, because it is a plan that is the categorization is all encompassing for those who do have special needs, as opposed to being specific on this one. those are my thoughts on that, to make sure it is open-ended and that we don't have to necessarily come back in, it's not 3 months, but with immediacy to say, oops, we said specifically else. Whereas now there's a huge demand now in DC related to kids who are experiencing homelessness as one example.
Yeah, I agree. That was my understanding of it as well. And Commissioner Berkey, thank you for chiming in too. Commissioner Hanson, is definitely a valid point. My understanding of it was that they intentionally were leaving special needs broad to encompass any form of special need as opposed to just disabilities or anything like that. Just because, you know, every student does have their own needs and we want to try to reach as many as possible and be accommodating. But we can definitely get deeper into that as we get through the strategic plan. So slide 9, which, thank you, Alex. Slide 9 is diving deeper into strategy 1, which is overview and activities, implement the vision for after school for all, provide and expand access to quality in-demand after-school programming through continued grant making, the launch of My After School DC, and through improving families' access and experiences with OST programs. The current state is the seat capacity for after-school programs does not meet demand. Programs range in quality, and there is a need to align seats with demand. The future state is that we would like to close the OST seat capacity gap via a 25% year-over-year seat increase for students to meet demand, for youth to have access to in-demand opportunities in their neighborhood, and choice of schools and programs are high quality. The blueprint is to be created to scale. We also have Appendix 1, which breaks this down a little bit further. Now, commissioners, we do have a bit of highlighted information for you to take a look at for the revisions. To achieve this, the OST office will 1.1 support the expansion of the OST office to grow from 15,318 projected seats in fiscal year 24 to 19,148 in fiscal year 2025 and 23,935 in fiscal year 2026, with a 25% annual increase for after school budget of 21,542,500 by the end of fiscal year 2026, in alignment with the growing portfolio of grants and bodies of work coming out of the OST office, and to support the scaling, capacity building, and expansion of after-school programs and OST providers. Commissioner Crump, I see your hand. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a suggestion since we only have about 30 minutes. If when we get to these strategy slides, can we see if any commissioners have any points about any of these strategies? Because if we just keep reading them out, we're not going to get, if we read everything out, we're not going to get through the stuff that we need to get through. So like if
That
we're
is
looking at
a-
strategy 1, I would
Yeah.
recommend that we say, does anybody have anything that they want to discuss between strategies 1 through 6, instead of us just reading them out, because it might be strategies that we all are in agreement with.
That works. Okay. Commissioners, is there any feedback, questions, or concerns on strategy 1?
I am just going to suggest that we consider in the future state paragraph that in alignment with the recommendation of the OST coalition, there be some mention that I see the seat capacity gap and the reference to Appendix 1 and the additional detail later on, but perhaps just calling it out here, which I think was their recommendation, that it be tied very directly to the overall goal envisioned by the needs assessment. So
I'm sorry, where do you, I'm
I think
trying to get it.
if I understood Riley's first recommendation from the coalition, it was to make sure that it's very explicitly called out in the strategic plan that the vision of after school for all represents an increase, an expansion of seats to meet, I don't know what the demand was, 52,000 or whatever it was, seats. And this represents, so in the future state paragraph, it says close the OST seat capacity gap. And all we would need to potentially put in there of 52,000 seats or whatever that specific number is via a year, You see what I'm saying? So that it incorporates the intent of the OST coalition's recommendation that we really name the big problem that we're trying to solve and show therefore the incremental progress that this specific plan represents.
Understood.
Thank you. Good point. Great feedback. Commissioner Crump, I see your hand raised again.
Yeah, so my concern is with 1.2. So when it was asked to give example about how our strategy was used, this one, we had the strategy of using OST provided feedback and expertise when structuring RFAs and making changes. That came from the Funding and Capacity Building Committee, but the intent behind that recommendation and the larger strategy that we have for that was to use qualitative data to identify supports and measure success that promote community-focused results and accountability, as opposed to only quantitative data in partnership with the quality committee. And our recommendation specifically that we wanted included was to create a committee of commissioners and grantees tasked with reviewing and approving significant change requests for RFPs, and the committee should also address major community grievances related to Learn 24's core values, which encompass community voice, equity, commitment to learning, and mutual respect and responsibilities. In cases when the standing committee disagrees with the proposed decisions and processes, these matters must be elevated to the commission for final approval prior to implementation. And then we put, this approach ensures that Learn 24's actions aligns with its core values and community input and equity considerations remain neutral to the decision-making process. The reasoning behind this strategy and how it has been integrated into the plan is two totally different things. And the feedback, so we went back, we've been talking back and forth for the last like 2 weeks about these different things. So then for us to get the feedback on the what do you call it, on a appendix that says that it could be a conflict of interest for grantees to be a part of a subcommittee, it troubled us, because that's as simple as us having a conversation and saying, okay, well, maybe I don't think that it would be a conflict of interest for grantees who have applied and went through the process and know ethics to be a part of it. But if that was the thing that was keeping this from being on the strategic plan, then we could have just said commissioners made up of commissioners and community members. But the way that feedback or our intention was used, it's a completely different statement from 1.2 now. It's about the application system. And that wasn't the intent of the recommendation. And that's what I mean when I say that our recommendations have been taken out of context in a sense.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Can I respond to that too, Peacock?
Definitely. I was just
to give the rationale. So, MADC is what we refer to it in our office. My After School DC is a new initiative. So the question was, well, the commentary was around any major changes are structuring of RFAs, right? Arguably, the first major change was in FY24 for the dosage. The next major change for the OST office will be MADC. That is the next major change coming out of our office. And as a result, that is why, number one, that it was plugged into this area. Because we want to make sure we made an error, right, for FY24 dosage by not collaborating with the stakeholders that are most directly affected. And we wanted to course correct for MADC to make sure that we are responsive to what the needs of our partners are. And so the reason why this was plugged in here was because our next major change, our addition, our expansion is MADC. Now, when it comes to major changes, initially the thought was 30 days, right? That was the initial thought. There was feedback that 30 days is too long or too much time given how long it takes for RFAs to roll out and be awarded. Then the suggestion was brought back regarding commissioners and partners having things run by them before decisions are made or major changes are made. The feedback, and it's not singularly from the OST office, it has been shared by other commissioners as well, that having a committee of commissioners and community members is a conflict of interest, because the first question is, how do we decide who is a part of that committee? That's number one. Two, we reverted back as an office in our discussion and deliberation to the 30-day component because it's a more inclusive process and gives people the wherewithal to opt in or to opt out of providing feedback as opposed to having an established criteria of select commissioners and grantees, prospective grantees are community members. And so the reason why we reverted back to the desire to attach this to MADC because that's our next big quote unquote change, our expansion for the OST office. And then two, our office preferred not to have again, this is a co-creation, right? Our office, who would be in essence implementing this plan, preferred not to have a committee of commissioners and CBOs because again, how do we decide objectively who is and is not included? And then also we are having individuals who could potentially benefit from what is decided upon, making those decisions, as opposed to some who may not have had the opportunity to be a part of it. So it's not for us, it was not a complete omission or wipeout. It was thoughtful on our end to make it a more inclusive process within a 30-day period for stakeholders, CBOs, and prospective grantees included, so that any major changes could be discussed as a collective for whoever across DC wants to be a part of that conversation.
So can I make a follow-up comment to that?
Go ahead.
Is that okay? Or does somebody else want to? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yep.
So first and foremost, I would say that for us, just like it was the 30-day was the initial feedback, Learn 24 said that that would be a problem on their end. We also heard from providers that that wasn't enough for them because the trust had been dismantled. So like even I know Riley is on this call from DC Action. So within the last year, we feel that to hold Learn 24 accountable to make sure that these decisions are escalated if it needs to be, because organizations are feeling like they're not heard. I know that even with DC Action, after those changes were made, they sent letters with 50, 60 organizations saying, this is why this doesn't work. And Learn 24 sent the letter back explaining why the decision was going to stay the same. So I think that sometimes, especially with the place that we're in, because Learn 24 has always been a place where organizations felt heard, organizations felt like partners. And in the last year, at least from what I'm hearing on the ground, organizations don't feel that way. They don't trust that Learn 24, even when you give the feedback, that the feedback is going to honestly be considered and changes are going to be made based off of that feedback. So I understand that, like the question about if how are those people going to be selected, the same way like subcommittee members, there's an application process. We even talked about in the subcommittee meeting that you were just in, Dr. Lowe, on Monday, the idea of like, if I've never heard, like it's never come up first and foremost, and we can talk about this later, but the whole conflict of interest thing, like I feel like even me and Commissioner Hill, who were selected to be on this commission based off of the fact that we were CBOs, I don't think it's a conflict of interest. It's an ethics thing. It's clearly either you're going to do something to benefit yourself or not. But the way that this task force, the way that we envisioned it being set up, it wouldn't be an idea of organizations making decisions for themselves, because the only thing that they would be doing is giving a recommendation for the commission to hear this subject or being brought to the commission. So for instance, if we want to talk about program dosage, if that was a situation where there was going to be this major change in programming and it was brought to this task force, the task force the only thing that they're doing is saying, okay, go ahead with it, sounds cool, that whatever. Or they're telling Learn 24, think about this or think about that. And we don't think that this should happen. And if they don't think that it should happen, then what we're recommending is that idea be brought to the commission meeting before, for commissioners to hear, who have been selected, who are commissioners, to hear it before Learn 24 implements this major change. Or if there are major community grievances that affect our, our four priority points that we have around equity. So it wouldn't be for the organizations or for commissioners to only limit them to say it. It's just saying, hey, wait, put a pause on this, bring this to the commission first to get approval, because this may not be the right thing. So it's just about holding Learn 24 accountable, and for us to be able to build that trust back up, especially with where we are right now. And as I said, community members, if it's the thing about grantees, I think that grantees would even be willing to say, okay, we don't have to participate. If it's a thing about commissioners that are also CBOs, I can exclude myself from being on. I won't apply to be on a task force, but I'm recommending the task force. I think there's other commissioners that could volunteer to be a part of the task force, because I think it's needed right now with the state of trust that we're in with organizations. They don't feel heard. They don't feel like, and I know we set up these processes and say we have these fireside chats and we do this and we do that and we hear, but there's a difference between hearing and it's different. So I guess that would be my feedback on it, and my thought process behind it, from the information that I've gathered from the community, the work that our subcommittee has done. We're just really concerned with the state of organizations being a part of this partnership, and making sure that Learn 24 is being held accountable. And that's the way that we felt that it would be easiest to do that. And we're open to suggestions, but we want to make sure that these things that Learn 24 is held accountable to some of the actions and changes, or whether it's our goals. We want to make sure that that's clear, and what we do moving forward, especially with how this last year is gone.
Okay, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to be quiet shortly. I saw Dr. Safran's hand. I want to make sure that we share this with you all. Again, for FY24, we made a hiccup where we introduced the dosage without collaborating with individuals. Our office has repeatedly apologized for that. We understand that it should not have been done in that manner. And so we've chosen to course correct and make sure we are responsive to our community members as we move forward. And so what I wanted to say is that, one, I would love to hear from other commissioners on this based on whatever we heard from the conversation as of right now. But I also want to underscore that our office has acknowledged that it was not necessarily done in the best way. And so we have already committed as an office to bring any major changes. That was one change. And even in that change, we heard your feedback. We introduced the bridge, which is pending and is coming very soon. But that was in response to provider feedback on what felt like a huge jump in dosage requirements. So our office is seeking to be responsive to our stakeholders, inclusive of our grantees. For MADC, the same thing. There are working groups that have been established because we want to course correct the damage that has been done in the past. Now, with that said, again, we are committed to bringing any changes in a timely manner to the community to engage in the conversation, which is why we recommended the 30-day period for our stakeholders, inclusive of commissioners. And the last thing I'll say is this, again, I would love to hear other commissioners' thoughts, whether it goes either way, but I'll leave it as that. I think that Dr. Safran was next.
Thank you. And you said almost what I was about to say. The idea of public comment and people being able to share their experiences, what works, what doesn't work, I think is the best way to gather information as you are trying to make decisions. And I can only speak from the experience that we had, because we had stakeholder groups and meetings and so forth before we decided like concretely what we were going to do for the changes that we did for 21st Century at OSI. And so, and I'm sure that everyone doesn't like all of our answers of what we put in, but at the same time, we did take as much of the feedback that we possibly could to include. And some of the things that they told us that it would not work, they were the practitioners. We believed them. We were like, okay, so we'll take this piece out. And I think to what you were saying, Commissioner Crump, the idea of having a group look at it, I think it would be beneficial to have anyone who wanted to be able to look at it, more than just a small group of people or a task force or whatever the case may be, because then for those people who wanted to say something who are not part of the task force, that period of time is open for them. And so that would be my recommendation, to say, have a period of time where whoever would like to have some input about what works and what doesn't work, that they have that time to do that. So.
Yeah. I wanted to make a comment. This is Commissioner Hill with regard to the conflict of interest. And several years ago, I've been a member of this committee for over 5 years. And on the onset, we had recommendations from the previous executive director and executive director team, who selected members and made recommendations who would and would not have an opportunity to become commissioners. And for those of us who don't know the history at that time, there was a lot of issues with regard to the government and the community trusting government because of what had happened with regard to the diversion of funds inappropriately used. So when we say conflict of interest, yes, I am an OST provider and do receive OST resources to provide our program here in Ward 7 and Ward 8. However, we have a voice for entire communities here in Washington, D.C., all 8 wards. And I just wanted to say that in terms of a conflict, again, what had been built up with the OST commissioners, and Dr. Lowe mentioned that there's not a specific guideline in terms of making recruitments from commissioners to join this board. But for those of commissioners that are new and don't really know a lot about the history and a lot about the bylaws that have taken place and were established by this committee. And yes, just in regards to open forum and open comment and open conversations from other stakeholders, our committee has been one of the largest attended committees within all of the subdivisions in the OST offices. So we had 10 to 12 people from across the communities and across all different wards who had a voice in the strategic plan to give information in terms of feedback, again, from all 8 wards across the city. And we have never really represented ourselves, and I say that as a public comment and go on a public record in terms of the strategic plan and it being a conflict of interest. I don't know who brought that particular language together, but that should be taken out of the strategic plan because there is no, in my opinion, there is no conflict of interest with regard to the commissioners that lead that particular funding capacity building. I think that that was a short-term determination without whoever made that deliberation did not look intentionally into what had taken place with the previous commissioners who have spent many years serving on this committee. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely excellent points and excellent discussion. Dr. Ladd, I don't know if you wanted to respond to any of that or if we should go through the rest of the commissioners with their hands raised.
I hear what is being said. Again, it was brought up. It's the message that was shared with us, and we're sharing it back to individuals to think through what the experience of other commissioners are. The one thing I wanted to do is get us back to the question of 30-day or the commission, but I don't want to be dismissive of other people's thoughts. As I said, multiple hands raised. But I hear where you're coming from. There are people who have differing experiences, and they're equally as valid as those that are had on both ends of the spectrum. So I'll leave it. I see a couple of hands up, but I just wanted to share that that was what was feedback that was shared with us, and to make sure that we are representative of all stakeholders, regardless of how they feel and what their experiences are. That's why it was captured in the plan. I see a couple of hands up, and we are crunched for time, so I want to be mindful of that. But I did want to hopefully bring it back to the question of a committee or a 30-day period. And again, I welcome all commissioners' thoughts and feedback.
So it looks like
does
the
it have
next.
to be a question of one or the other?
I think both would be excessive. There's like there's not enough time in the day, but commissioners, please, if you have something to say, I welcome thoughts. I see Commissioner Siegel's hand is up as well. I can't really necessarily see the entire platform. And Commissioner Hanson I see as well.
This is Commissioner Siegel. I think this conversation is raising a major issue that needs to be discussed. And unfortunately, it's coming up in context of the plan, which is, I think it's a serious question of the roles and responsibilities of the staff as compared to the committees, and whether the committees are decision-making bodies or whether they are recommending bodies, and the staff has the final say in putting together a plan and how it all works. And so I think that it is a longer conversation and a very complicated conversation, and I hope that we can engage in it, because what I'm hearing is that there are very different perspectives on everyone's roles and responsibilities and how we define who is able to do what in terms of moving the plan forward and moving the commission forward.
Really quickly, that is a point of discussion that we will be having as we look towards the next calendar year. It is on our agenda to bring to the commission the Standing Governance Committee for these questions, exactly as Commissioner Siegel has shared. So just plug in that it's coming, the conversations around the roles, responsibilities, etc., by way of a Standing Governance Committee. If you were a part of it and would like to be part of it as we move forward, please reach out to me and Chair Peacock to indicate your interest to tackle questions just like the one I was just sharing with Commissioner Siegel around roles and responsibilities of commissioners and staff.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Lowe. And Commissioner Crump, was your hand still raised from previously, or is this a new hand?
Yes, I just have three comments. It goes to, so like when we're talking about a standing governance committee, like that being established, and literally what we're asking for is a committee to just be established for accountability, community accountability, right? That's what we're asking for. And we're talking about another committee being established, which is great, but it just goes, it's the same. It's funny because we're sitting here talking about a committee or a task force being established, and then we're talking about a standing governance committee. But at the same time, like with that question that was just asked, I think that technically we're supposed to go by legislation. Legislation details what our roles are as of now. And if we read through the legislation, then it tells us what our roles are specific to this. But I would just also like to, my last comment is in reference to the comment Dr. Lowe said about how it was rectified with the program dosage. We also have DC Action on the line. So I would like to ask DC Action, do they feel like the steps that were taken after their large group of providers said, hey, here's the issue, do they think that was, and it was acceptably handled or rectified? I don't know specifically what the word was that you used, Dr. Lowe, but I guess that would be my question, because what I've heard from organizations is that they don't feel like when the steps that Learn 24 has made has rectified those issues. So being that DC Action had 60, 70 organizations say, hey, here are the issues.
70. It wasn't 60 or 70.
Okay.
But
how many? Riley, can we hear from Riley? Because I think you represent the DC Action. However many it was. Can you just speak to how the group felt about how if it was resolved or the action that was taken by Learn 24?
Yeah, I can try to respond. I would have to pull up the letter in my files to get the exact number of signatories for this, but from what I've heard from coalition members in the aftermath of the advocacy that we did around the RFA changes pertaining to dosage and some other things, I think people felt like the solution of having a bridge grant for 1 year, it wasn't exactly satisfactory, given that there was also, it was basically stated that starting next year, the dosages would remain the same as in the original RFA, which wouldn't really allow many organizations to be eligible for any Learn 24 funding if that were the case. So I think there was some disappointment regarding sort of the long-term direction of the RFAs with the dosage requirements.
I want to bring the conversation back for clarity and also for the purpose of the meeting for today. Thank you, Riley, for sharing your thoughts, and also Commissioner Crump. My example of the bridge was to share that we are being responsive to the feedback that has been shared. One solution, which was the bridge, to give stakeholders that they needed time to kind of adjust to the new model. And that time, at minimum, is 1 year for those who cannot meet the threshold. So that example was shared to show that how we are being responsive as we move forward, because we messed up initially, how we are being responsive to provider feedback when they shared that the bridge was, that the dosage was too much at one time. And so we've responded and said, okay, we've carved up this amount of money to support those who are unable to meet the dosage requirement as is. Now, bringing it back circle to the actual purpose of this meeting is the plan. And I see other stakeholders that are, their hands are being raised, commissioners. I and my team would prefer, as we will be the ones implementing it, the 30-day threshold, because it is more inclusive of multiple and diverse stakeholders who want to be a part of the conversation. If we want to be co-collaborative across DC, we have to create a space for those across DC who may not have the time, capability, or capacity to be a part of that committee and or identified committee to share their views. That is the position of my posture of my team and my office. And that is what we are deemed as feasible as we move forward. So if this is indeed a collaborative process, just take note of where my team stands regarding the 30-day period for feedback prior to major changes being made. I see that Commissioner Hanson, Dr. Safran's hands are up. I'm not sure who was up first, but I'll defer to you guys.
I think what I maybe just wanted to weigh in on, without maybe getting into the specifics of the issue here, is one, I kind of want us to do a time check, since I think we're coming up at less than 5 minutes of the meeting, and I don't think we're going to get through the plan tonight. And I think we should land with a clear process for how everyone can provide actionable feedback on this, and make sure everyone feels like their voice is heard and that everyone's been able to provide their input on this.
Commissioner Hanson, you took the words right out of my mouth, because I was going to say the same thing. Like, this is definitely a conversation that we probably need to have, but that's not helping us move forward with this, because we're still on the first one. And the other piece, I think that from where we started and where we are now, the office has included so much more of the recommendations that were asked to be included. We're never going to get to a place where every single thing is included. It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. It's like, if we want this to be a strategic plan that is doable, there are some things we're not going to be able to include. So we have to think about that too. We're not going to finish tonight, but I don't know how we're going to get to a place where we can be complete if we have like these side comments. So like in avenues, I want to be able to approve this so it can like actually be the work that we're here to do. But you guys tell me how we're going to move forward, what we're going to do, and I'm ready to dig in. But unfortunately, it won't happen tonight.
Commissioner Peacock, this is Jackie Carter. I didn't get a chance to speak at the top because I was dealing with my son. Could I please get an opportunity to say just a couple of words?
I think so. Let me get back to you in one sec, Ms. Carter, just because we are finishing up the conversation on the strategic plan. We do value your opinion and want to hear what you have to say but let's just wrap this conversation up and then, or is it regarding the strategic plan actually?
No, it's not. I just have
Yeah.
just 2 minutes. If I could get 2 minutes, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let us just wrap this conversation up so we can figure out a plan moving forward, and then we'll definitely give you some time to speak. Okay, how's that sound?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you as well for being patient and bearing with us. I see Commissioner Crump and Commissioner Berkey both have their hands raised as well. Okay. Oh, okay. Guess they put him down.
Sorry, I'm not putting my hand down. I wasn't sure.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, like, to Commissioner Crump, is this the issue that you're raising of, a different type of engagement between the whole OST office and providers and the commission and so on? Is that really the key missing piece of the strategic plan at this point, or are there several other issues that you feel were not incorporated here that are really crucial?
There are other areas that I think are crucial that are missing, specifically for funding and capacity building. I would say, like, even as we look through so what I would say is, over the last couple of weeks, we've had to justify things that were on our previous strategic plan, justify really hard why they should be on it, like Learn 24 responses and having to respond back. And it was really a fight just to get capacity building grants on here, because our perspective of capacity building grants, because they were prior offered and then it just stopped when we had new leadership. And now just to get them on here has been a fight. And it's on here, but it has a caveat in it saying based on funding being available specifically for capacity building, as compared to other language throughout this document, including my after school DC, which is a new initiative, when it says in future years, increasing the amount of students for my after school DC, increasing the amount for summer, increasing for all these other initiatives, it does not have a caveat of it being based on funding being available specifically for capacity building. So I feel like adding that to that statement is basically a non-commitment to it, when it's something that the funding and capacity building committee under Deborah, we worked so hard to get that included. And just even in having a conversation about it with the office is troubling, because we had to justify the difference between capacity building, and training and technical assistance, and why Learn 24 it has been something that we have been leaning towards. So I just want to make sure that we have a commitment of capacity building grants, because it's something that we worked really hard for. And even within the plan, I see that there's specific strategies there's a specific strategy for advocacy for Learn 24 to work with organizations around advocacy to increase summer funding by 10%. There is no specifics about advocacy around capacity building, even though we're putting a caveat on it about there having to be advocacy or having to be a different source of funds for us to do capacity building. And capacity building is one of the routes that we can really use to improve outcomes, specifically for those organizations when we talk about equity issues like small nonprofits, and to actually improve organizations' capabilities to serve more students. So if an organization is better positioned when we talk about the development of their system, even if it's something as simple as a mini grant of like $5,000, that can help a small organization get the capacity to be able to serve 2 or 3 more students each year. And when we're talking about this, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Margaret.
I'm just thinking in terms of, I hear the priority that you're expressing, and I really think that it needed to be included here, and I'm glad to see that it is. I think what you're raising also is that there may be a lack of consistency in the way that throughout the strategic plan, any reference to future funding should probably come with either the same caveat, like contingent on the availability of funding,
Yeah.
or it should all reference, some effort to advocate for the additional funding, because none of this is achievable without the city rising to make a funding commitment to meet these multi-year goals. So I mean, I don't think any of this will be achievable without that. So and so I think just as an internal consistency, if you're going to say that a certain type of funding is contingent on, a certain type of initiative is contingent on funding or contingent on advocacy, and that essentially applies to all, it should be stated for all, or it should be removed from all.
Commissioner Berkey?
It's just a technical edit.
Commissioner Berkey, I differ on this, and here's why. So initially, correct, capacity building was not included in the plan, right? Now it's included with a caveat. Here's why there's a caveat. Our office is slated to lose, quote unquote, lose extra funding, perhaps the OST funding, at the end of this fiscal year. Our goal as an office is to sustain all of our current FY24 providers at their current funding levels. We have to account for the difference in funding loss. As a result, our office has prioritized getting funding for direct services to mitigate the loss of funds. That's number one. Direct service grants are our priority as an office because that is the basis for our work youth outcomes, but also in consideration that we are losing extra funding at the end of FY24. And so we had to kind of figure out how can we make up for that differential at the end of FY24. Initially, it was not included. It is now included with a caveat. Here's the context for that caveat. Again, our priority is making sure that we can sustain providers at their current levels, because we've had an increase in funding for FY24 that's significant, and that could also potentially be lost for direct services in FY25. And so there's no caveat for us for direct services grants because that is at the heart of the OST office. Regarding capacity building caveat for FY25 and FY26, again, this is a co-created effort in deliberation with the OST office. It is literally not feasible fiscally in FY24 to have a capacity building grant. Our team indicated that yes, we can't do it in FY24, but we are more than willing and happy to do it in FY25 and FY26 if we get more funding, because our first priority is balancing out the fund that we will lose for direct services, because if that happens, a lot of providers are not going to be funded, and we have to prioritize that first. And then on top of that, not either or, on top of that, we can then do the capacity building. This is a co-collaborative effort. The commissioners' committees have shared what is feasible. The OST office, who are going to be the implementers of this, have also shared what is feasible for them. The last thing I will share, and I'll be quick because I know we are at time, is that again, it was asked of us to do a survey of CBOs. We did a survey of CBOs. Arguably, it has been shared that the survey that we've done didn't necessarily get the results that were wanted, or it was quote unquote biased based on how things were structured. In the survey with our partners, we asked them, what should the OST office prioritize as we move forward? The number one suggestion was increase the amount of funding for the grant competitions. 2, increase the amount of capacity building trainings by way of the Institute. And 3, increase the amount of money that can be asked for by way of, and number 3, increase the number of direct service grant competitions for youth. And so, yes, it has been shared the need for capacity building. Yes, it has been included with a caveat because our first and foremost priority as an office is to make sure we can sustain our funding sources for FY25 for the kids. When that is taken care of, absolutely, we can do capacity building. So yes, it's a combination of commissioners, committees, feedback, but the OST office is telling you as a team what is feasible and what is not implementation-wise. And so again, there's a lot of thought going into what has and has not been included based on strategy, based on it being a plan, and then also based on multiple stakeholders' feedback. We need to wrap this conversation up. I don't necessarily know how we're going to move it forward, but I welcome commissioners' thoughts about next steps for this plan specifically. Because if not, we'll be here all night.
Agreed on that note. So yeah, I do see a few more hands raised. Ms. Carter, we definitely still want to get to your public commentary, so I haven't forgotten you. Is that what your hand was raised for?
Yes, sir, but I'll take it down and wait. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, haven't forgotten about you. Commissioner Hanson, any thoughts or suggestions or feedback?
I think I just wanted to offer a proposal for how we move forward, and I would welcome any friendly or constructive feedback or amendment to it. But I guess what I would propose at this stage is that the Office of Learn 24 share a version of the strategic plan that folks can provide comment on. I think it's important, not just for, I think it's important for us to see where there is disagreement or feedback on the plan. And from comments I've heard tonight, I think it's also really important for folks to feel heard in terms of how their feedback is presented and shared with others. And we set a time frame for which we can provide specific, comments on the plan. I don't know what sounds reasonable. I would like it to be tight. I feel like 1 week might not be enough time for folks. I'm wondering if we could go to, Friday the 13th or something. So we give folks up to 2 weeks to provide comment, and then a week for people to review everything. And then we just work through it at our October meeting.
The next meeting is November.
I guess that I would, I guess I'd propose maybe an October meeting. I don't know.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. We'll definitely take that into consideration with the office. Commissioner Crump, did you have any feedback on Commissioner Hanson's comment, or is this a separate point?
It's a comment on a request as we move forward in terms to what he said as well. So I guess my only comment would be specifically what my subcommittee's wants are for the next meeting, because I feel like we provided everything and we haven't gotten much clarity. And I also think that when I reviewed the OST updates, I feel like a lot of the information that was presented there was to justify the exclusion of certain recommendations that the funding and capacity building made by conveying current performance is more favorable than it actually is. Because when I looked at the documentation where it says like we're supporting small nonprofits by like 315% increase, our committee has asked for that data to show how they're getting these numbers. And just by us comparing the grant competition summaries from last year to this year, it's not that high. It's more like 30%, because small nonprofits last year got awarded almost 700,000. And yes, it was an increase to almost 900,000 this year, which is good, but it wasn't a 300% increase. It's more like a 30% increase. And last year, small nonprofits were awarded 17 school year or year-round grants, and it was 17 awarded this year, but they said it was a 40% increase in awards. So I just want to make sure that as we're and the data, just by the small data that our committee was able to gather just by looking at the grant review summaries, we show there's actually a 20% decrease in the amount of small nonprofits that applied this year versus last year, which attributes to the equity issues, the changes of requests, because 21 applicants applied last year and there were 17 who applied this year, which I give Learn 24 as props, because 17 people applied, 17 people got funded. That's great progress. But when we're getting this data and we're talking about funding and capacity building, specifically for me, because I feel like a lot of that data, like around how we're doing equity with small nonprofits, 315% increase, was used to show that we're already doing things that we're asking them to do, even though the data does not actually reflect that, and we've asked for the details. Like the thing about it serving 15,000 students this year. Last year, the grant summary says it was for 15,665 students. So it's actually, we're serving less students this year. And that's not even considering the fact that the summer grantees, because last year that was just the year of the few people who got year round in school year, but then you also have summer grantees who got school year too, which counts for about 2,100 additional students, which means last year as compared to this year's projection for year round and school year, we're actually serving less than we did last year. So like, I think these numbers can be manipulated, and I think we need to like review that a little bit more carefully before we start saying that we're using this to justify. My same thing, the last point I will make is about our committee asking for clarification on the data provided on page 18, specifically the claim that 98% of the youth who organizations are going to serve this year are at risk, and 85% reside in Ward 5, 7, or 8. And we're very unclear on how these percentages were calculated or estimated, because even if all 121 organizations who applied stated that they were going to serve 75 to 100% of these youth, which was the maximum that you could select, Learn 24 could only assume the maximum of 75% based on how the application was written and the minimum qualification requirement. So I don't know how we're getting that number of 85 or 98, because even if every single organization said they were going to serve 75 or estimated they were going to serve 75 to 100%, the maximum category was 75 to 100%. And organizations haven't inputted their program data yet or anything. So if we're using these estimations to bring this information to the commission to show this data, then we need to have the data to back it up. And at our last committee meeting and the committee meeting before that, our subcommittee asked for this data, and we're still not being provided it, like the detailed data. That's just off of estimations of knowing, like having committee members go from one grant summary to the other one, but not in knowing that the grants range from 30 to 50,000. We taking the lower number to be able to estimate that 700,000, but it could have even been more. We don't know because we don't have the specific data. So I'm just saying that to say that in all transparency, I think that this stuff should be looked at a little bit more closely, because it's as we are building this out, because it's frustrating when you're asking and you're asking and you're asking and you're telling and you're justifying and you're justifying, but the progress isn't being made. And I feel the same way that Saffron does. I don't want to sit here and talk about a strategic plan. I want to do the work like we were doing the work, but I don't want to submit a strategic plan that does not encompass everything as much as possible. The baseline things that we've all agreed on for years. I've been on this commission since it started, and we had a baseline that equity was important, strategic racism, like all of these things aren't like new things, like us using the needs assessment. Like, these are things that have been established that we worked really hard on. And I feel like it's I guess that's all I have to say. That's my request, that we get access to more of the data, because I don't understand the data that has been presented to us, or at least was emailed to us in this document.
Thank you, Commissioner Crump. And we are more than happy to share the data. I'm actually in queue for that. But please understand that awarding and acceptance of the award are different. That organizations could have applied for year-rounds, coordinated entity, SNP, small nonprofit, and they had to choose between the small nonprofit, year-round, and coordinated if applicable. Regardless, we are more than happy to share that information, and it can be forthcoming. But please, again, basing it on the summary that is shared is not accurate, because just because you are awarded does not mean that you accept. And also, that number from FY23 was inclusive of special competitions like Safe Passage, Safe Bloods, and so you are comparing apples to oranges. We compared competition to competition for FY23 and FY24. I want to pause. The recommendation was made that we, Commissioner Hanson mentioned a period for commissioner feedback, and then potentially an October meeting. Chair Peacock, Can we get a sense of where commissioners are on that for the sake of time? If we
Sure.
do have another feedback period, I would ask that based on what was shared tonight, our office has the opportunity to update the plan to what, based on what we heard tonight, and then give them a window for commissioners to provide whether it's 2 weeks for them or 1 week to supplement or add on based. So my ask is this: I've taken a couple of notes on what every commissioner has said, and I would love the opportunity to include that, to have the most recent version, and then perhaps we have a 1 or 2 week period, but I need time to actually sit down and be strategic for the plans updates. Like I said, it's not a catch-all. We have to be tactical in what we do. And so if I can have a week period to kind of incorporate these suggestions, and then perhaps a 1 or 2 week period for commissions to look at the most recent version. And then if you would like to have an October meeting, more than happy to, if needed, but I defer to what the commissioners think is necessary to move this plan and forward.
I would agree with that. I see a couple more hands raised. Commissioner Hanson, Commissioner Crump, you can definitely get to both of your points. I would just like to chime in on that, and I think we should take a vote on that suggestion regarding moving forward with the October timeframe. But I think Commissioner Hanson, your hand was raised first. If you want to go ahead and speak.
I forgot to take it down, so I'll pass.
Okay, no problem. And then Commissioner Crump, I saw you had another hand raised. Was that another point, or was that from before?
You can move forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioners, so it has been proposed to have an additional meeting in October to review the strategic plan along with Dr. Lowe. What was that? Another 2 weeks to get the plan together?
Well, I would like to update the plan based on what we heard today to be
Right.
responsive to what commissioners have shared.
Right.
And then, equally as important, provide commissioners with a space to build on the most updated version of the plan, so
Okay.
we can hopefully come to a vote, whether it's October. I don't want to put November in the atmosphere, in October, but I would need at least a week because I have multiple other priorities, especially as FY24 begins Monday or Sunday, technically speaking. But I would ask for 1 week from my office, and then if the commission needs 1 or 2 weeks, we can make that happen. But then also establish a October meeting for hopefully discussion and voting on it. So in summation, the question for me is for me is 1 week, or my office is 1 week. How much time would commissioners need to review the updated version based on what the OST office shared as an update? Is it 1 week or 2 weeks? I see Commissioner Hanson saying 2 weeks.
Okay. Is there
I don't know
any
how this goes.
opposition
Go
to
ahead.
Yeah, we can take a vote on so we'll vote on the 1 week for the office as well as 2 weeks for the commission to review. Are there any alternate suggestions to the 2 weeks? Does anyone oppose that? And if not, can we get a motion to vote on that?
I motion that we give the Learn 24 office 1 week to incorporate revisions and feedback from tonight, and that we offer commissioners 2 weeks to provide additional feedback and comment on it.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Any seconds to that motion?
Second, this is Commissioner Siegel.
Thank you, Commissioner Siegel. Okay. So we're gonna once again do roll call vote. Commissioner Berkey.
I approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Crump.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Desir.
Abstain.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Hanson made the motion. Commissioner Hill.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins.
I approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Verlin.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Saffron, sorry.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Siegel,
Approve.
thank you. Okay. So this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 commissioners vote to approve with 1 abstaining. And I vote to approve this as well. Okay, so this motion passes, commissioners. So as outlined, we will give the Learn 24 office 1 week to implement the changes that were discussed tonight. And then the commissioners will have an additional 2 weeks to review those changes. And we will establish an October meeting to once again review the strategic plan and hopefully get it voted in by that point, so we can get things rolling.
I looked at calendars, Chair Peacock, and October 26th would be the next possible date within the 3-week time frame that was just shared for 1 from our office and 2 for the commissioners.
Okay.
I don't know how that works for the commissioners, but October 26th will be the next available date. It will be a week after commissioners have shared have laid their eyes on the plan for 2 weeks.
Okay, that works for me personally. Commissioners, do any of you have any objections to the date of the 26th? Does anyone have a strong conflict that day? And I know
I
you all
believe it is the lights on after school celebration across the United States. So perhaps it's appropriate that we meet that day, although a lot of us could be tied up in, maybe not a lot, some of us would be tied up in program activities that day, perhaps. But
Yeah, that's a good point.
that's the only thing.
Okay.
If the meeting is at 6, we'll just be rushing from one to the next.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Dr. Liu, do you have any suggestions regarding that date? And
No, I defer to what works best for the commissioners.
yeah, given Commissioner Berkey's comment regarding the date, commissioners, do you think that would work for you all to be able to attend the meeting, or because it's no point if we're gonna have low attendance and not be able to make quorum and vote on this? So does anyone have any complaints regarding scheduling the meeting around that time frame? Okay. Okay. So currently, as it stands, we will shoot for that date, October 26th. It was, Dr. Lowe?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Commissioners, I know you may need some time to check your schedules. So if there, do become any large instances where we see the majority of us may be unavailable, please let Dr. Lowe, Shannon, and I know as soon as possible so we can try to make arrangements. We really do need to meet quorum for this meeting so that we can vote on the changes and attempt to get this strategic plan implemented. So thank you. As promised, I did also want to give Ms. Jackie Carter a brief moment to speak. So before we wrap up this discussion, are there any additional comments, questions, or concerns that we need to take up at this time? Okay, great. Alex, can you bring that 3-minute timer back up for us? We're gonna give Ms. Carter a few minutes to speak before we close out. All right. Ms. Carter, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Sorry, we just
You're
had a lot
welcome.
of pressing matters to get through.
So I wanted to take the time to talk about equity and excellence. The work that I do with at-risk children in Ward 7 and Ward 8 depends a lot on me raising them to equity and excellence. If I lie to them or am I dishonest with them in any way, all hope is lost, all trust is lost, and I've possibly lost the ability to reach a whole group of young people and bring them into being dependable, responsible, contributing members to society. So having said that, Learn 24 leadership in the past has always been a place where we small nonprofits look to for guidance, support, and inclusion. We had a fireside chat meeting with Dr. Lowe and Shanna last week where Dr. Lowe insisted that small nonprofits for fiscal year 24, all of them, all 14 or 17 of them had been fully funded. Shanna backed that up in the chat by stating that all nonprofits had been fully funded. So if you requested 80,000, you received 80,000. If you requested 50,000, you received 50,000. That's a quote from Dr. Lowe. When in fact, that was a straight out lie. It was not true. I know that was not true because I talked to all of the awardees for small nonprofits. So when I pressed and pressed and pressed Dr. Lowe on it, she kicked the ball to Shanna. When I pressed Shanna on it, after writing in the chat that all nonprofits, small nonprofits had been fully funded, then Shanna started to recant and decided that, well, maybe they had all not been funded. So my question is to this commission and to Deputy Mayor Kine, if he's on this call, how do we move forward with two people in leadership position that we can't trust? Just on something basic of how much funding was received. That's not anything to lie about. Yet, small nonprofits who were on that call, and I wasn't the only one on that call, did receive purposely false information. So my challenge going forward is, how do I trust these two women? Thank you.
Well, I'll be happy to respond to that, Ms. Carter, and I'll look forward to talking with you about it. First of all, I think it's very hard to be in this kind of public discussion and to hear that kind of extreme allegation and attack on the character of two professionals that I work for and respect deeply. I am sure if we actually invited them to respond, we would hear a different account of what was said or wasn't said. And I think this is an occasion where we should always look at the publicly available data about who asked for and got what and how it was responded to. So I think there's probably a fact base at the bottom of this that we could look to. I think more importantly, I would just encourage us all to express our opinions and perspectives on the matters at hand. And if you have a specific concern with folks that actually report to me and work with me, I would prefer to hear about it directly so that we can talk about it. I just think that kind of conversation in this public forum is really, really difficult. And so I'll look forward to our small group discussion, but I will just share again, you are talking about two folks I work with regularly and I have the deepest respect for.
Thank you. I still have 24 seconds left, and I want to just use that to respond to Deputy Mayor Kine. I appreciate your remarks. You have to know that I am bewildered. I'm shaken in light of how I've already been treated by not so much Shanna, but by Dr. Lowe. And I am don't share these kinds of remarks about professionals lightly. I am fully aware of what I'm saying, and I'm fully aware of the platform on which I am sharing it. And I think that the other small nonprofits who are on the call are also deeply disappointed that they were attempted to have the wool pulled over their eyes. So I appreciate your comments. It's a matter of record. I think the fireside chats are recorded, and so are the chats. So I look forward to having that discussion with you as well.
Okay. Thank you for your public comment, Ms. Carter. Dr. Lowe, I want to give you the opportunity to respond if you would like to, or
I will respectfully disagree, and I will leave it on that for public record. Nothing more to be said at this point, but what is being said, I wholeheartedly disagree with, both for myself and for every member of the OST office team.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, so this will all be resolved. Deputy Mayor Kine, thank you for stepping in and addressing the comments. We're looking forward to having that smaller meeting to discuss whatever is going on so that we can get everything resolved and peacefully within our community and for DC. With that being said, commissioners, we are quite over time. I know a lot has been brought up and dropped on us at the last moment. Before we do close out, are there any additional comments, questions, or anything? And if not, can we get a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn. This is Commissioner Saffron.
Thank you, Commissioner Saffron. Any seconds to that motion?
Commissioner Hampton seconds.
Okay. Who's the first one?
Desir.
Thank you, Desir. Sorry. Okay.
I didn't get, who seconded the motion? I'm sorry, this is Dr. Hope. I'm taking minutes. I couldn't hear you.
Hillary Desir.
Yeah, Commissioner Desir. And Commissioner Saffron made the original motion. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there is a motion to adjourn. Once again, roll call vote. Commissioner Berkey.
I approve that we finish this meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Crump.
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson.
Yay.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Hill.
Approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Verlin. Still with us. Looks like Commissioner Verlin's no longer on the call, so I'll put that as abstain. And Commissioner Saffron made the second to the motion. Commissioner Siegel.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. So this motion to adjourn the meeting.
Missed me, but I approve as well. This is Commissioner Jenkins. Just wanted to note that.
Oh, thank you. My apologies. Okay. So this motion unanimously approves with the exception of Commissioner Verlin, who looks like is no longer on the call. Commissioners, thank you for your time and the very engaged discussion. We will continue to implement those changes for the strategic plan. Once again, the office will take about a week to review that, then release those to us. And we'll have 2 more weeks, and we'll then meet October 26th to discuss and hopefully at that point vote on the strategic plan. So again, we need to make quorum as much as possible. If there is an overwhelming amount of people that cannot make it that day due to the schedule conflict, please let us know ahead of time because it is crucial that we make that quorum. And other than that, thank you again for your time, and we will talk to you shortly.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hey, Shannon, do you have Dr. Lowe's number? If you could send to, I just wanted to check on her real quick, make sure she's okay after that. Offline. Thank you. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
let me give it to you. And listen, for the record, because we're chatting on it, like it was stated over and over again during that fireside chat, which Miss Carter said that this was like she compared it to lynching publicly. And then it was stated over and over, not to everyone, but that there were grantees in both the school year and year round of small nonprofits that received the full amount. She's making it sound like we said everybody was funded at the full amount. We clarified multiple times for her. She just isn't hearing it. And then she's calling like Dr. Loa Lyncher. Like, I mean, the morale after that meeting, the entire staff was looking for new jobs. I mean, this is not going to be, I mean, we were laughing at it, but it's like at the same time, it's like so demoralizing for a staff that works so hard to continue to be beat up like this, including Dr. Lowe. And it's just like, I don't know how to like move this forward when this false statements are being made that are blatant lies, but we're being called the liars. Like, it's just, anyway.
No, I get it. Are you okay? Because I know that can be quite stressful.
I
So
mean,
I just want to check with you.
yeah, I'm okay, but it's a different environment. It's so hard. The work that we do is so great. I've never imagined an organization that puts out over $25 million in grant funds to support nonprofits and the collaboration that we have with our grantees, the support of the staff. I mean, we're so positive relationship building, and then we get on these calls and it's like worse than going to the principal's office. It's like, we just get beat up by our commission and the same voice that has, like, I don't know why she has such an agenda, but she has called Dr. Lowe out of her name publicly. It's just, I don't know how we move forward, but yes, I think it would be great that you check on her.
Okay.
We usually have a quick check-in as a staff that I need to head over to after each of these meetings, but her phone number is 202.
Okay, 16, sorry. 202.
812. I say I can also put it in the chat. 202-812 3765.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, thank you. Sorry that you guys have to deal with that. I know it's a lot.
It's horrible.
Like I know this is they're recording it. It's a public forum, so I can't say too much. But I just want to let you know you have my support, and if there's any ways I can do more to help support and have your back, please let me know, and I will do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We very much appreciate you.
Thank you. Likewise. I know you're doing a lot, and it's definitely not easy work, and it's not an easy city to do the work in. So thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great evening.
You too. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.